Hi friends, today I'm going to tell a creepy but enlightening story that happened to some skiers in the Rocky Mountains of Canada. They went on a trip that was supposed to be their greatest adventure. But fate had it differently. This trip became their last. Our heroes are Cornelius Brager, who was simply called Cass by his friends, and his girlfriend Claire Dixon. Cass was born in Minnesota, and Claire in Whitehorse, which is in the Yukon, among the wilderness and harsh climate. From childhood, they were used to long hikes, the vagaries of weather and mountaineering. But what united them most was their passion for skiing. Their parents put them on skis before they could walk. Claire made history by becoming the first woman to ski down the awesome mountain couloir in Canada. It was a major athletic accomplishment. She met Cass shortly before descending Mentee, Jeffrey, and soon they were summiting together. Their most high-profile success was skiing down Denali, the highest point in North America. At the time, 25-year-old Cass was working as a high school ski instructor, and 27-year-old Claire was preparing for a career as a psychotherapist. They had adult life ahead of them. Claire planned to work with patients, and Cass was going to become a professional mountain guide and drive commercial tours. They realized that there would be less time for each other, so they decided to go on an extended trip, their last big adventure before a new phase of life. In the spring of 2006, they embarked on a 30-day ski trip on Canadian glaciers. As part of a program of the Alpine Club of Canada, the couple kept the winter lodges in order and helped other hikers. They made friends easily. Everyone who met them noted their friendliness and sincerity. Skier Zbigniew Lisicki, who met them on the route, later recalled, "They were amazing people. Their energy seemed to overflow. They helped others even when they were tired themselves." But soon that cheerful photo, which Lisicki took as a memento, would appear in newspaper columns under headlines about missing persons. Before I continue, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel. It's very simple, but it's really important to me. Your support motivates me to create new stories and helps in the development of the channel. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story. On the penultimate evening of their lives, Claire and Cass emerged from the winter house and were pleased to note the change in the weather. For the first time in days, the sky was clear of clouds. The snowfall was almost over, and the peaks of the mountains glistened under the full moon. Tomorrow, January 3rd, they planned to leave Stanley Mitchell's winter camp in the Yoho Valley and continue through the mountains. Their goal was Bo's Hut on the Pta Glacier. The 20-kilometer route required at least 16 hours of travel time. Guidebooks warned that it was a difficult crossing, but the couple was not worried. The forecast promised good weather. As a last resort, they could camp along the route. They had been in the Pta Glacier area since mid-December and settled in the winter hut on December 27th. Despite the scenic views, they were eager to leave the cabin and get back to skiing in the mountains. The next morning, the skiers staying at Stanley Mitchell's hut were surprised to find that Claire and Cass had just started packing. If they really planned to reach Bo's Hut in one day, they should have gotten out much earlier. But the sky was overcast, the snow was deep, and Claire had not yet fully recovered from her cold. With all this in mind, the couple decided to split the route into 2 days and spend the night in the mountains. The path they had to overcome was not so long, about 20 kilometers. However, this distance was over rugged terrain with an elevation gain of almost a kilometer. With deep snow and no tracks, the crossing promised to be difficult. First, Claire and Cass had to pass through a dense pine forest, then cross the moraine at the Clow Peak Spur. The next step was a steep climb up to a small pass and out to the Deepaloo Glacier. This section is especially dangerous. The glacier is covered with crevasses, into which tourists occasionally fall. After a few hours of climbing, the Wapta Glacier and a long descent to the Bo Hut awaited them. The couple wisely decided to split the route and spend the night in a snow cave, expecting to make this moment part of their adventure. They wanted to be in the wilderness again, to feel the atmosphere of a winter night in the mountains. Although the Wapta Glacier is not considered technically challenging, the weather here is variable. In heavy snowfall or fog, the crevasses, which go tens of meters deep, become almost invisible. But was this what Cass and Claire were thinking when they left the winter camp on January 6, 2006? On January 16th, Mark Ledge, a lifeguard at Banff National Park, received a call from Claire's father. He was expecting her at Revelstoke, but his daughter never showed up. Cass had also failed to arrive for a mountain guide course that was due to start after the hike. The parents didn't immediately sound the alarm. They realized there might be no communication in the mountains. But now it was clear. Something had gone wrong. On the morning of January 17th, Ledge began checking possible versions. According to him, too often they had to search for tourists who simply forgot to inform about their return. But Cass's car was still parked in the parking lot at the park entrance. Further investigation confirmed that the couple had indeed left Stanley Mitchell's ranch on January 4th. Mark Ledge realized that with each passing hour, hope for a safe outcome was fading. He immediately requested a helicopter and went to the Wapta Glacier. The search began. The rescuers flew around the area and looked in every hut. They checked the visitor logs that tourists are required to fill out, examined the food supplies left behind, looked for signs of Claire and Cass. But they were nowhere to be found. That meant only one thing: they had not reached Beau's hut. By mid-afternoon, it was obvious that Cass and Claire had either fallen into a crevasse or been caught in an avalanche. Helicopters continued to circle the area, but the couple did not have a RECO transmitter. In recent years, many hikers have been wearing special reflective tape on their clothing and equipment that allows them to locate a person from the air using a radio signal. In the afternoon, when the rescuers were making their last overflight of the Coley Plateau, one of them noticed something in the snow. It was a barely discernible dark dot, but an experienced eye recognized an important detail in it. "I got out of the helicopter and touched the object we spotted from the air," the rescuer later recalled. It turned out to be the top edge of an avalanche shovel handle. Continuing their search, the team found a ski binding. And then, digging through the snow, they came across skis and a piece of tent. It was clear. They were standing on a grave. About 1.5 meters under the snow were the bodies. Because of dusk, work had to be stopped, and the rescuers were forced to leave Cass and Claire where they found them. On January 19th, their bodies were carefully removed. They were found with their diaries, a snow condition log kept by Cass, and a camera. The journal entries shed light on the last hours of their lives. On January 4th, 2006, Cass and Claire left Stanley Mitchell's winter lodge. The morning snowfall soon intensified, but avalanche danger seemed low. However, the worsening visibility was worrisome. They realized that they could stop at any moment and dig a snow shelter if the weather worsened. Up to a certain point, they were going at a good pace, but after 6 hours of travel, around 3:30 p.m., as the pair approached the Dipelu Glacier, the going slowed down. Visibility was zero. Despite this, they managed to reach the crest of the Wapta Glacier by 16:30. There they began digging a snow cave on the Coley Plateau, as the day was drawing to a close and the storm was just gaining strength. There was no slope on the plateau in which to dig a full snow shelter, so they built a trench version. They dug a hollow, covered it with skis, and stretched a tent over the top, covering it with snow. The last photo from their camera shows them lying in sleeping bags inside this shelter. There's a gas burner between them. They could have just been cooking food or trying to warm the shelter. But as it turns out, that turned out to be a fatal mistake. Rescuers initially assumed that the couple died due to a snow cave collapse. They were covered by a layer of snow, and the lack of air pockets left them with no chance of escape. However, the autopsy added a new detail. They were found to have lethal amounts of carbon monoxide in their blood. Apparently, Cass and Claire had suffocated on the gas vapors while cooking or trying to warm the shelter. They were probably still alive when the collapse occurred, but were no longer able to act due to the poisoning. Scratches were found on their arms and legs, a sign that they were trying to fight for life. However, due to weakness and disorientation caused by poisoning, they could not get out. There is a version that the cave collapsed because of the heat of the burner. But experts agreed on one thing. Even if the collapse occurred earlier, the main cause of the tragedy was carbon monoxide. Cass had a lethal concentration of carbon monoxide in his blood, while Claire's was slightly lower. But this, combined with high levels of carbon dioxide, also led to severe poisoning. By the time of the collapse, they were no longer able to act consciously. This tragedy is a terrible reminder of the deadly dangers of using gas burners in confined spaces. Statistics show that 3 times more people die from carbon monoxide poisoning in tents than from all other causes in mountaineering combined. I hope this story is a cautionary tale for all mountaineering enthusiasts. If you found it interesting, support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read all your posts. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. A lot of people watch the channel without subscribing, and that needs to be fixed. See you at the new summits.